It's awesome to speak to this group, those listening. It's going to be a lot different than you've probably been hearing for the past couple days. We're all going to talk about bees. And I'm going to hope that by the tail end of this, really I just want you to learn 4 things. There are gentle bees that don't make honey. They nest in holes. You can do this. I need you doing this. And we'll teach you how. My website's just full of stuff, okay? At the tail end, that's what you know. When we think about saving the bee, okay, when I say that, we're only thinking of one bee, the honeybee, okay? Save the birds by raising chickens. That's the exact same statement. Okay, so why do I say that? It's obviously, when you're trying to save the birds, you see a chicken, you see the eagles, you see all those things, you understand that, yeah, it's really different. You're not going to save the birds by raising a chicken. There's 24,000 species of bees out there. 7 of those are honeybees. We just don't know this. We don't really know what's going on, and because they're also small and they all kind of hit the flowers. So, not a big deal. When you listen to this, I am not saying anything bad about the awesome honeybee. Super industrious. Oh my gosh, they make honey, and there's wax, and there's propolis. It's an awesome bee. We're misusing it. That's probably the bottom line. When you work against nature, nature wins. If you're going to put a house upside of a cliff, probably not a real good idea. When you're putting your roads out there, the wind and the rain and the ice and nature wins. That road goes away. There's something going wrong with the honeybee. There's over 90-some maladies of colony collapse disorder and the varroa mite and tracheal mites, and there's so many things going on. We're doing something wrong. We're working against nature, and that's really the biggest thing. And I think I have the answer. As one person come up with an answer. We're working against what's natural. We're working against what is natural. A honeybee queen lays between 1,000 and 1,500, depends upon the pollen load out there, eggs a day. Okay? If there's not enough competition, it's easy getting all the pollen. The bees kind of stay around locally. Okay, but with today, what we're doing by trucking the honeybees everywhere, they're not a great pollinator. Okay, we'll learn why in a bit. But they're not a great pollinator, so we keep on adding and adding and adding all these bees. So when you look at the orchards today and the crops today and the almonds that we're doing, you have within the flight range 5 miles, but maybe go down to 1 or 2 miles, you have close to 1 billion honeybees all overlapping, all trying to get pollen. And it's kind of funny. Recent science has shown that we're getting the diseases and the varroa mites are actually coming through the flower transfer. So a diseased bee is leaving something behind, deforming virus, and your honeybees, the other ones coming through there, and native bees, are hitting that same flower and being pushed to the hives. So my supposition is the root cause, there's too many honeybees in one area. It's just pure bee density. All the symptoms we see, colony collapse disorder, varroa mite, all of these things, if you spread your bees apart where they want to be, you wouldn't have these issues as much. Okay? So I can't really say that it's the chemicals, it's all these. It really comes down to you're misusing an awesome bee. Stop using it that way. Well, we can't. This is the industry. This is the only bee we have. This is all we know worldwide. And I'm going to unravel a couple things for you. Let's talk some assumptions. Okay? Still, I'm going to focus on the honeybees because that's all we know, and I want to level set what we know. Okay? All bees are aggressive. They all cause anaphylactic shock. You need your EpiPens. All bees give you honey. And honeybees are great pollinators. So let's just kind of walk on through these. These are assumptions, and spoiler alert, they're all wrong. Okay? So we're looking at all bees sting. So we think there's, between the number changes, between 20 to 24,000 species of bees. And the only reason we don't know what the really number is, we just keep on finding new ones. So it's a big number. 90% of these bees are solitary. Okay? Social, you think of a social environment, there's a queen, there's the drones, they've got a big hive, and they all support everybody. In a solitary, every female bee is a queen. She finds her own hole. A mason bee goes in tiny little holes like this. She works this whole thing all by herself, so it's just the queen, and that's it, okay? She's male, she's mated. But in a social environment, you defend the hive. The eggs are there, the honey's there, so those bees are adapted to scare you away. And when you get stung, yeah, you might need an EpiPen. Whereas a solitary bee, it's just her. She's gathering pollen and nectar and laying an egg and sealing it with mud or resin or something. She can't defend the hole and go out and do all these things. And so she doesn't. She doesn't defend. You can hold the bees in your hand. You can get stung. I've been stung in my 20-some years, maybe 3 or 4 times, and yet you know you got stung because it kind of hurt, but you've got to look to see where you got stung. The little tiny white dot just disappears quickly. I've been reading for this, looking for this. There has been, that I'm aware of, no cases of anaphylactic shock from a native bee. The venom is just a much lower class. So there are gentle bees out there. Most of them are gentle. Out of the US, North America, Canada, there are no native species that make honey. The honeybee came across with the pilgrims in the, long time ago. They brought the dandelion with them because there wasn't enough pollen on the shore, so we can thank the, a long time ago. What's that honey used for? Well, the honeybee actually survives through the winters. There was a bunch of live bees that survived through the winter. They need that food. Your native species don't do that in the winter. They've all laid their eggs inside here in different species. I'm an adult bee in the middle of the winter. A lot of mason bees are adult bees right now. You can open up a cocoon, and there's a bee. They don't need anything but a hole to survive in, so there's no need for honey. There are no honeybees of North America. Okay? So this is kind of damaging a little bit. Real recent research. Sweden went out and was looking to see how does the honeybee impact native bees. They went and found 20 1-kilometer radiuses where there are no honeybees and counted all the bumblebees that were inside there, long tongue and short tongue, something along those lines. Then they went out and put hives in 10 of these things, and then came back and counted and found that there was an 81% loss of the bumblebees. They concluded they were starving the native bees, they were spreading their diseases, and they also said, well, we know the honeybees aren't great pollinators. They're taking all the pollen back, and that's probably what's going on here. And at least in Sweden, I don't think they've done this yet, they're looking actually to legislate having only 1 hive per kilometer because food is more important than honey. Very recent, this is just a couple weeks ago, they're now realizing, this, just the word spreading, the assumption that honeybees are great pollinators, or that they're great for the environment. They're not good for the native bees. They're starving them. They're spreading their diseases to them. Okay? We are doing this to our environment by having the assumption that there's only 1 bee in the world. Okay? There's and it just is. So what I want to do is kind of unwrap so you'll understand what's the earth true practice. Let's understand how these guys actually pollinate that will then maybe reset some assumptions of pollination. Okay? Pollen is out there just for the larva. Okay, I've laid an egg. On the left side is a honeybee, kind of a cross-section there, and then the right side is wood trays that I've got here that you're able to open these things up and see what's on the inside. So you'll find pollen, and the bees lay the eggs in the pollen. The egg hatches, becomes a little larva, eats all the pollen up, spins a cocoon typically, metamorphoses into an adult bee sitting in a hole. Pollen is larva food. So the honeybee, again, awesome, sophisticated, really cool bee. 1,500 eggs a day. Every grain of pollen, they're needing 1,500 little mounds, pea-sized bits of pollen. That's not easy to find per day. So all of your 30 to 40,000 bees that are flying are all trying to gather that pollen. And boy, it is tucked up tight on those legs. When I spoke with Dr. Musson out of UC Davis a couple years ago, we're talking about this, he says, Dave, the minute that pollen shows up on the back legs, that's not pollen, that's bee food. It's sticky, it's not coming off. Okay. So all those, they're very fastidious. As I leave my flower, I've been in there, I've got it, it's on my hind legs, and I'm taking it back to the hive. They're an awesome pollen gatherer. Whereas your native bees, not so sophisticated. They're belly flopping into the flower, rubbing their hairy abdomen onto it, and it's all there, dry. Next flower, belly flopping in there, pollen's falling off everywhere. So they're horrible at gathering pollen. Okay, these are pollen spreading bees. Where is that pollen coming from? Okay, so we've analyzed, we've seen this in orchards, almonds, cherries, apples, whatever. We find that after about 2 or 3 hours, the honeybees have depleted the orchard of all the pollen they want. And then poof, off they go into 2 to 5 miles, just looking for more pollen, because they got to get that 1,500, things a day. They will go out there. So they are a far-reaching bee. Your solitary bees, way, way tighter. 300 feet maybe, 100 meters. And that's it. And they're gathering their pollen from a very local source. How do they find their pollen? That's kind of interesting. The waggle dance, there's a little communication, little figure eight. The angle of the dance copies the sun's declination off the horizon or something. The length of the dance is how far to go out. So what you have to understand is, okay, the bees, as they watch that waggle dance, I'm going to go out to that one source. That's where I found it. Back to the hive, back to that same source. I'm staying on a tree. Hive source, until finally I've finished that tree, because all my sisters are all over everywhere. All 30,000 of us are all choosing our own sources. We're collecting every bit of pollen we can to support that queen. Okay? Very, very target, very focused. Whereas a mason bee, boy, ADD. We're into a flower, next tree. On a flower, next tree. They're doing a 20 or 30-minute circuit just through the orchards, through the fields, through whatever I'm doing, the strawberry field, gathering. And as they're going, the pollen's just falling off everywhere. So very unfocused bee. As a result, you can tell, cross-pollination. Oh my goodness. When is this stuff gathered? Honeybees are, again, really smart. On a bad day, windy, stormy, rainy, they've got that honey, and they're just going to hunker down and use that to survive the day or the week. Your native bees, I've got 6 weeks to live. I've got to get every egg laid. They're up earlier, they're in bed later. If it's a windy day, they're flying low. They're tough little bugs. They're really doing all they can. Mason bees are more spring, kind of handle the colder environments. Leaf cutters are kind of more hot. They'll be working in hotter environments. And I'm not saying the honeybee's lazy. I'm saying the honeybee's probably smart. But the differences there really help us think about it. And can you move these things around? The wonderful part about a honeybee, I'm taking the whole hive up and moving it over and dropping it off here. That's awesome. And when this field's done, I'm taking it up again and moving the hive and the food and the bees. It's such no wonder we use this insect. It's awesome. Well, all right, native bees, most of them are in the ground. 75% of these 24,000 bees nest in the ground. Bumblebees are in the ground, minor bees, digger bees are all on the ground. Okay, you can't take a shovel full of cocoons and dirt and hope they survive. You just can't. But 20 to 25% nest in holes. I can move these things. I can open these things up. And you can see that on the slide. The mason bees are cocoons. I mean, this hand right here, this hand is about 1,000 cocoons. This would supply cherries that would cover probably the entire stage. Probably 8 to 10 tons of cherries by this little handful of bees. Amazing. So let's push this into, now that we talked about the truce, well, let's understand a little more now that we understand how these bees work. I'm on a pear field. This is central Washington. On a pear in mine, we're just on a dirt road, and we're kind of looking at pears everywhere. And Farmer Brown nicely shows up in his pickup truck, and we're just trying to see how would mason bees fit in here. How do you pollinate your crops? And he says, oh, well, north side pollinates the south side, and south side pollinates the north side. It's huge, 10 acres, 10 acres. Well, we knew immediately that mason bees wouldn't work. 300-foot radius. There's no way in heck that north is going to head to south. It just wouldn't. So we knew that. A week later, I started to think about this. Well, shoot. The honeybees shouldn't be working here either, because they head north from their hive, grab the pollen, and come back and take it all off. There's no north side honeybee visiting south side road. Well, what's going on? Okay, and this is me. Where does the pollen exchange really occur? I think in the hive. I think north side bee, by accident, picked up some south side pollen, and I carried it with me. And I brought that pollen out with me on the north side, and again, the bees that were heading south got some incidental north pollen on them and spread south. But the pollination is occurring in the hive, not in the field. Huh. Now, there's no research on this one yet. This is just me sitting on a dirt road thinking about it. This is another one that could be stretching it here. A peer of mine had mason bees in an almond orchard that was in wood trays. And he's opening these things up in the fall, and he's finding just tons of pollen balls. So the eggs died. There was no, you normally find here lanes and lanes of cocoons. But there are a lot of pollen balls. So we sent the pollen balls out to, actually around here, a lab around DC, and they said, boy, it's just laced with this type of larvicide. Huh. Well, that larvicide wasn't sprayed in that orchard at all. They're trying to look at records, and they found the records had to have been maybe half a mile to a mile away. How did that larvicide get into that orchard? Okay, it's possible. Could have been really windy for a long time and picked up a lot of that larvicide that was sprayed, maybe carried it onto the field. Another path could be that the same thing as we're looking at the parrot industry. Bees out there a long ways away picked up pollen, and that larvicide came back to the hive, fell off, and was transferred from the honeybee to the field where the mason bee got it. So you look at this, and it's almost kind of, if the exchange of this larvicide occurs in the hive, is there such thing as an organic farm that has honeybees? Because you can't control 5 miles of pesticides. You just can't. And so is it this? It's possible. I'm not saying that it is either one. It probably could be just the wind. But if I know that the pollen is being exchanged inside the hive, so could the insecticide, larvicides, fungicides from elsewhere. And so I'm cautious, but my eyes are open. The one thing we do know for sure, whether you're a mason bee or a leafcutter bee, these two solitary bees out there, they are amazing cross-pollinators. They're hitting everything. So what happens? Science says, boy, when you put these bees on cherries, double or triple the yield. Okay, we had Jim Freeze out of North Omak, Washington, tried the bees out, and in his 5 acres, he got $103,000 extra that year because he'd put mason bees on his cherry fields. Almonds, more. Lisa Horth, Old Dominion, just finished she'd used our bees for 4 years. Her 4-year conclusion, 1.48 times the volume of strawberries. And they ripen faster. Huh. Pure just using a mason bee. We know apples and pears and kiwis, they're not science. But the farmers we talk with, I had 2 farmers last year were putting leaf cutters in organic farms in Tennessee. 2 farmers complained. Too much food. Huh. Okay. So one of them was doing acorn squash, and the consumers want acorn squash this big. Well, he had so much squash on his acreage, he couldn't pick it fast enough, and they got too big, and then he couldn't sell them, so they just sat there and rotted on the field. Okay. Another farmer was picking beans, and by the time they got back to the beginning of the bean row, they were dried on the vine. So he had to find some place where he could get the good beans. Too much beans. Okay, and you can solve. And actually, the funny problem is, think about the contract. I have a contract with Whole Foods, and I'm giving you 2 tons instead of the 1 ton that you wanted. Oh, shoot, what do I do? These bees produce food. Food-producing bees. So just briefly, I don't want to get into what's a mason bee? Solitary bees that go into holes, existing holes. There's big bees that go into big holes, and there's tiny little bees that go into tiny little holes. They're everywhere. Okay, they are. The mason bees, they come out in spring in cocoons, and it's really, really cool. And you got a cocoon in your hand. You can hear it when you got a bunch of them. You hear them. They chew through the silk cocoon. It sounds like Rice Krispies. And when they're out on your hand, it's just the coolest thing. They crawl out, and it's a bee. And they walk around your hand. They poop, always. And then about a minute later, off they go. And just to hold a bee in your hand and to witness this after 20-some years, oh my gosh, I'm on my porch. Later on, we got to do a couple of things. I've got bees all in my laps, and you just start talking to them. It's a sad story, but I have not gotten tired of bees. So the mason bees come out in spring. They mate. They find their own little hole. They gather pollen, and just after 6 weeks, they're dead. Honeybees live 6 weeks, but there's 1,000-some bees born a day, 1,000-some bees die a day, except for the queen lasts a while. So these guys are just 6 weeks. The eggs they laid are next year's bees, and these guys metamorphose through the summer. They are adult bees in cocoons right now. This is February, they're adult bees. A leafcutter bee is a summer bee. Same thing. They go in probably different size holes. They come out in summer from leafy cocoons. They mate, they find their own holes, they gather pollen, lay eggs. They live about 6 weeks. The eggs that they laid are next year's bees, and they overwinter as pupa, as larvae. So it takes them the warmer part of May and June to turn into a bee. That's it. Real simple. These bees nest in houses, and I'm crown bees, so we have all the houses and holes, and we actually care, and we'll talk about it. Our stuff has to work for you guys. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. Go to my website. It's really easy. You'll find there's a learn page. Oh gosh, there's tons of things to learn a little bit. Get involved. Boy, speak for us. Do these things. There's all these programs. We're trying to spread the word. We have a thing called Bmail. It works, okay? We have a lot of people that on the front of the month, here's what to do. Here's exactly what to do this month. So you don't have to read the website. We need you successful. In the middle of the month, we talk about native bees, and we'll finish with that program of why native bees are more important than the bees that I can sell you. But so, if you want to learn, go to our website. We'll teach you what to do. Why am I here? What am I doing? So 2006, the World Resource Institute said we need a lot more food between then and 2050, 60% more calories. Fast forward 10 years. Whoops, we're wrong. We're gotten behind. So we need almost 70% more food by 2050. Okay, that's scary. I'm not going to be really too worried about 2050, but my grandson should be worried. Okay? I'm chasing that goal. That's my company. I'm a food company that works with bees. So how do we get more bees? Or how do we get more food? Native bees are super pollinators. Just remember that, please. Bees that nest in holes, I can move them from my yard to your yard, from across the county, and maybe across the state. I don't want to introduce bees from Utah to Maine. That's just wrong. The bees aren't acclimated. It could be spreading diseases. So keep bees tight. Let's be ethical about it. But cavity nesting bees can be moved. So of the 4,000-some North American species, 20-25%, we're not quite sure. I reached out to the three probably main solitary bee scientists and said, what's their percentage? How many bees do you think there are? And one guy said, I don't know, 15%. I don't know, when I got 20%, maybe 25%. So I'm kind of saying, 20-25% of these bees. We don't know. We know the names of the bees. We can find the bees and count the antenna segments and say, that's a osmia, whatever. We don't know what size hole they go in. We don't really know when they come out in the year. We don't know when I seal my chamber, pollen, egg, is it clay? Is it resin? Is it masticated leaf bits? Is it cottony stuff, the down off the flowers? Am I wrapping it with leaves or something between? We don't know. Am I a generalist? Can I get pollen from dandelions or anything? Or am I specific only from the creosote bush? We don't know. We don't know. We have 3 bees managed that are native. The mason bee that I've got, this blue orchard, yeah, it's a great bee, and we've got a lot of them. Not a lot. I mean, we have enough to maybe impact out of the maybe, let's call it, out of all of your orchards, peach, almond, apple, cherry, pear, that's probably maybe 1.5 million acres. If we were to put 1,000 bees in there, we're looking at almost 1.5 billion mason bees. Collectively, between my 3 peers and I, we have maybe 3 million, just a few decimal points apart. Leaf cutters, another one. Yeah, there's actually a lot. It's a very deep industry. It's been going around since the 50s. Saskatchewan is probably the cleanest set of bees out there, and those bees mostly get our alfalfa. My company is taking, gosh, here's a bee. Does it have to go onto an alfalfa field? What if we put it into a bean field? Huh. Funny, it's working. It's just a bee looking for pollen. So we've got a lot of that. I'm not too concerned about that. The third one is we do bumblebees. There's one bumblebee, we, the humans. We manufacture bumblebees in Mexico and spread that overnight to the east part of the U.S. That's it. Where are the other 997, if that's the number? Where are they? Okay, they're there. They're there. We know they're there. And so in my company, we're actually going to go out and find the most prolific bee. And I'm saying prolific. If we're looking at the native bee network, I'm trying to connect it. I'm trying to find them. We know they are there. Where are they? Well, I don't know. but they're there, okay? We've just actually this year just started a little program. It's going to be on a more larger scale. I'm not just selling you onesie, twosies. You can go buy mason bee houses from us. But on a larger scale, go buy $500 worth of gross little PVC pipes. We filled them full of reeds. Go put these out. Go put them in right-of-ways and in backyards and along meadows and along farmlands. Go put them where there's pollen sometime during the year. Okay? Leave them there all season long. This is way different. No one's done this yet. Okay? Let's, in the fall, open a few of these things up. Boy, these are reeds. I know I just cracked this reed, and I've not got cocoons on both sides. Okay, let's go find out what's in there. Not all of them, but let's go find enough to say that we know what this is there. And then you know what? We're going to take that same little house and put it exactly back where we got it, because the bees were really good right there. Let's do this a couple years in a row, and we're going to find bees that really do well. And we'll find obscure bees that kind of float through. I can't focus on little bees. I'm actually a food company. Let's go find the most prolific bees of Maine, of New York, of Pennsylvania, of Arizona, and get those things analyzed. Now we've got a lot of them. Let's go make cages, and let's go, I say this, it kind of sounds abnormal. I'm going to raise a lot of native bees of Pennsylvania in Pennsylvania cages so that I can put them into farmlands. Okay, and I'm going to put them into organic farmlands. And I'm going to, someone say, hey Dave, how come you're not going to talk about neonics and all those nasty things out there? I'm going to avoid that. A lot of other people are working on that. Don't use pesticides and stuff. Neonicotinoids, Bayer, Monsanto, BASF, they already know it's failing. They're already working on the next line of chemicals. So when you hear them saying, oh, we're neonic free, oh, we're BPA free, but BPS is in there. Same things happen with the chemicals. So I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to cheat. Okay? I'm only going to give my bees to organic farmers. And when you put your bee with an organic farmer, they're going to get more food. So I don't know if that's exploitation or whatever, but I want to just, by economic, stop doing what you're doing and go organic, and we'll give you bees. Okay, I'm working a different path. This is it. I need you guys. I need who's ever listening. I need your friends. I'm a small company. Okay? There's just 8 of us. A tiny little company in Woodinville, Washington, with a big mission. We got the Commercial Orchard Bee Association going. We've got that going. We're not big enough to make a huge splash yet. Costs money. So far it's been just slowly moving along. But we're at a point that Steve said, hey, Dave, come on out, speak. Awesome, you know. Can we get more people putting holes in their yards? Now, your yard, someone was asking me about, they're on the south shore of Long Island. You could be in desert land. There's been so much chemicals put in there. Your yard might be an oasis surrounded by desert. Could be. Could be. You still got bees there. Small, medium, large holes in your backyard. What's there? If nothing's there after a couple of years, all right, it's not your fault. You're probably the oasis, especially this crowd. Go put these holes on some parkland someplace else. Reintroduce those bees, find them there, and bring them back to your yard. But let's go find these bees across North America. And Chile, and Haiti, and Ethiopia. The bees are there. Just takes word of mouth that there's something other than the honey-making bee. These bees can be moved from point A to point B real easy like. We've just got to find them. There's your message. Go get holes. What questions could I answer? Hold on.
First of all, thank you for what you're doing. I'm really touched that you support organic farms as a person who's involved with that. How would you transport the bees? That's what I'm curious. How would you do that? Or how would I do that?
So we've got in my coolers hundreds of thousands of bees just in coolers, and they're local cocoons, and I mail them. Every Monday we mail bees across the country. And so I have bees from Pennsylvania, box of them, because you've mailed the bees back to me from Pennsylvania. I've got them in my Pennsylvania box, and I move them back to people in Pennsylvania. So U.S. mail. That's how I move my bees. So yeah, they're in coolers. And so my leaf cutters are in Saskatchewan right now being raised by the billions. And we just get big refrigerated boxes of leaf cutter bees, and we put them in our cooler and push them out. So we transport bees in the mail. It's that simple.
You said to get little PVC tubes and put them, do you want us to put them in a batch in the backyard? Or can we just take something and punch holes in the ground and make holes like that? Can we use drinking straws? Like, is there a website to show ways to make little homes for these bees? And I wasn't clear, are these for the mason and the leaf cutter, or all kinds of solitary bees, or just one specific kind? Thank you.
That was two questions. Hold on, okay, let's go with the first one. First one was what to do. Okay, I could spend another 20, I could talk forever on what to do. Our website's full of a lot of stuff, I promise. We are managing an insect. The honeybee is a domesticated insect. It is a cow. Okay? We move it around, and it's a cow that doesn't have a fence, but it is a domesticated insect. Because we artificially raise more, we need more pollination than what's natural around us. Okay, so accept the fact that if you're going to put your garden out there, it's not natural that much pollen in this place. So if you want to pollinate your artificial garden, then you need to pollinate, you need to manage your artificial pollinators. I say artificial. I'm giving you bees that go into holes, and in nature, these holes are typically spread apart. Okay? But because we're easy, it's, I've got a beautiful house that puts them inside there. Pests are going to walk right through them, and you're going to get, over a period of time, pest just overruns inside here. I don't want that. I want every bee to survive. And so we're actually taking reeds apart. We're opening up wood trays. Our paper tubes open up just easily. So we want you actually opening these things up in the fall. So you'll find, if you guys are just searching for mason bee things, you'll find a lot of stuff that's not very good. People are making money off you. Bamboo's not a good thing. Plastic's not a good thing. Drinking straws are not a good thing. Thick, now I'm getting technical, thick paper tubes. You can go roll Take 4 or 5 wraps of a computer paper around a pencil. There you go. Fold it over. That's probably sturdy enough. That'll work. Phragmites, reeds. You can do a whole bunch of these, a lot of reeds. Wood trays we use commercially is the best thing because we can open them up really easy, like reusable. These bees nest in holes at about this height. If I was shorter, I'd say about this height. Just you want to see what's going on. You want to be around them. They're really kind of cool. In fact, they're unbelievably distracting. If you're a gardener and you're walking through, they're just buzzing. It's so cool to watch. You're counting the holes that are filled up, and the next day there's 20, next day there's 22, and they're very distracting. So watch out. And your second question was what? You had 2. Oh, well, I went on. Sorry. Hold on a sec. Let's go here first. Oh, okay. So her second question was where to put them. We have, you see in the background of that that's a little chalet we've got. You're putting your holes into something that just keeps your holes dry, a house. The bees really don't care. The bees prefer reeds most, paper tubes and the kind of wood trays if they're preference order. But a house just keeps the holes dry. So you're keeping them in a house and you're keeping them kind of facing morning sun. Real simple. I mean, the amount of maintenance of honeybees is a lot. The amount of maintenance for a mason bee is probably maybe an hour a year. Okay, I walked out there, so 5 minutes I'm going to stare and figure out what I'm going to do. And then maybe 10 minutes I'm going to put it up, put the bees out, maybe another 5 minutes, so there's 25. And then they're going to do their thing. And in the fall, I'm going to take them out and open these things up. I'm going to give you, in the fall, there's videos. We'll teach you how to do it. Your glass of wine, good music, and cocoons. There's 30 minutes. And so they're really low key for amount of effort that you're gaining by these bees.
Yeah.
Hold on.
If we're doing this in the fall, would it be, and you suggested paper, but I'm going to use my Bbomb stems because they're hollow in the fall. Would it be better to use a Bbomb stem, or is a sunflower stem too fat because that's another hollow pipe?
So I am a bee,
Okay.
and my size, I'm a very small bee, and I go in probably an 1/8-inch hole. Find that.
Okay.
And I'm a large bee, and I go into larger holes, maybe 5/16 of an inch. So between 1/8 and 5/16, find that.
Okay, so I guess, all right, let me reiterate my question then. Is it better to use your plants that are hollow, okay, or is it more constructive time-wise, okay, to use a paper tube, okay? And my other thing is, you said to use computer paper. Could you upuse or recycle newspaper, or would the newspaper print not be good for the hive?
You ask great questions. I always go to root as I can. What is earth true? Is the word I coined. So reeds would probably be always my first choice. So everything my company puts out is reeds, paper, or wood, because I think that's most earth true. Ink, probably doesn't kill them. Then I probably wouldn't use ink. I probably only think the paper is good enough to really stay tight for a full season. So probably more, but you've got bleached paper, lean on us. And if you don't have time, we've got the stuff. We're trying to be as low cost as we can because we need bees. So here, I didn't say this. We have a thing called bee buyback. You guys are raising these bees out there, and I've got bees for you to raise. Raise them, get too many, and now what do? A lot of people, after they've got too many, they've handed to their friends. This is like friendship bread. You hand it to your friend, and everyone's kind of tired of getting your bees. We'll take them. And so they're mailed back to us. So we've got hundreds of people across the country with their excess cocoons. I need the bees of Hudson Valley. I need them back here, but I need them found. Too many of them, push to me, and we'll get them back here. So I'm looking for bees. I'll get over here next. Okay, 1 second. Wherever you want to go.
have a question. In this kind of research subject, which is insect and related to human health, if I want to have more research study, it will be categorized, if it is published or not, in under what category? Biomedical, science, health journal, biology journal? What is the right category for insect and human health?
It's a great question. So where would you put this? I find the research that I'm touching entomologists all the time, and so I'm getting forwarded a lot of documents. Because there's only one bee in the world, it's mostly always just kind of found with honeybees, and it's always, so you'll only find this with honeybees. The obscure science, we're starting to find more and more people getting tired of studying honeybees, so we're getting more research. Pre-doc, post-doc are working on native bees. I think those are being published. I just see them in Science. I see them in PLOS, P-L-O-S. And if you have questions, you can reach out to us, info@crownbees. I'll feed you whatever information we've got. My company, we don't hold anything back. My IP, intellectual property, is just zero. We need you guys raising bees. I'm giving you every bit of knowledge free because I need you guys raising bees. Talk with us, sell your bees back to us, but, Okay? Hold on. She's stealing the mic.
The second question is, the honey oil is extracted from honey or from honeybees or maybe from the native bees? But you said native bees does not produce honey.
You said, so honey is the...
Honey oil.
Honey oil, I don't know that.
Essential oil.
Okay, so it must be only from a honeybee, only.
It must be, thank you.
There's only really one sect, there's a Mariposa in Central America, but I think most of the only honey is from the one bee.
So I might have missed something, but is there actually a declining bee population in the world, and how bad is that problem if there is a problem?
Okay, great question. I'm an optimist, so I'm always trying to ignore the bad stuff out there. You look at neonicotinoids, probably not a good thing. It's probably not helping the bees out any. I think it's more, it's impacting their progeny, it's impacting their memory, being able to find their ways back. We found that, I said this last night, we put, did I say this? Twin orchards? Yeah, I think I did. Yeah, we think chemicals make them smell, so I don't have an exact, what was your answer? What was your question? I'm losing it.
The question is, what's the truth about, right, the declining bee?
Oh, okay, there you go. Okay.
Declining bee
I don't
population?
think, what's the truth? I don't think the honeybee is just what Beth showed, a rowboat. There's enough, the boat is sinking. We're doing so much damage, I think, but there's so many people, there's so much money, there's so much research, there's so much energy behind this hobbyist, this commercial industry. There's enough balesmen and people chewing gum, plug in the holes. That boat's not going to sink. And it's stabilized out. Everyone's always saying, save the bee. I don't think the honeybee boat's going to sink. But probably scarier than this, and it's an ugly research. Some Germans, a couple of years ago, older Germans, were driving in a reserve, so a nice place, and they said, gosh, do you remember years ago we had so many bugs squashed on our windshield? It's called the windshield study. And there's hardly any today. I wonder what's going on. So in Germany, the only place in the world, had records going back 26 years, looking at the biomass, so mosquitoes and ladybugs and anything flying. 77% loss of biomass in that 26 years on their pristine reserves. Okay? So when you look at the food web, bottom here is, soil, and then you got grass, and then you have insecta, okay? And then you have things that feed off that, so, mice and birds and stuff, and then maybe eagles at the top or whatever. 3/4 of this food web is missing, possibly. Certainly on the German reserves, but no one else in the world has data going back that far. That's scary. And so I think we have an issue. I think we only are thinking everything is honeybee, and we don't realize, this is Dr. Dave Bittinger out of Penn State did a study on fungicides. How bee safe is it? Honeybee, bumblebee, mason bee. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the honeybee, 1, 3, 2, 4 something, and the mason bees were all different. So what was safe for the honeybee wasn't necessarily safe for the other bees. But to the world, there's only one bee. And so there's a lot of, when we say things are bee safe, we're thinking of one bee. And so I, as the optimist, say, let's go find bees and we'll figure it out. But there's a lot of damage going on. Just is. As a realist, I just say, yeah.
Hi. My son wanted to grow, he lives in Brooklyn, and he wanted to have hives in his yard. And evidently they have to get some kind of a permit or something to do it in Brooklyn. But he could not get bees because there were bees 5 blocks away.
Good.
And they said that if he got bees, then the bees would be aggressive and they would fight.
I don't think they would fight. I think kind of bees are kind of kumbaya a little bit. They're kind of more vegetarians or vegans or whatever. I don't think they'd fight, but certainly they are competing for the same amount of pollen. And I saw an article years ago in London. They were saying the mass of honey is pulling way down. So everyone was saving the bee in London, and there's so many hives out there. They couldn't get the honey load just dropped because there's only so much pollen in the world. So I'd say I think the honeybee, because it's great for honey, is the only reason I would do it. I would not be saving the bee by getting a honeybee hive.
Okay, thank you.
You may have spoke about this before, but it's sort of going to this fellow's question about the decline of the bee. And I'm just wondering, because we're always coming up with new technology and it's getting stronger on the planet, and we all buy into it. And how much tests do they do? Or do you know if they do tests, like with EMFs or any of the things that the new technology that's coming up? They're putting up stronger 5G towers, and how much of that have they done tests with bees, and them being so important? Is there anything going on that you know about?
Everything is trying to save the bee. That's a good question. There's robo-bees that are coming out there. Boy, you can, little flapping something, a little trail. It still doesn't fly very well, but let's go, because we've blown it, let's go get artificial pollination. The study that Deborah was talking about, the EMF and honeybees, I don't know. I haven't heard much research from that long time ago, and I actually thought the author had redacted that paper. And I say that because I think that happened, but I think there's a lot of messaging that occurs that shifts the blame towards other things. They're putting little RF tags on bumblebees to see if they can analyze their flights. They're doing a lot of stuff to save the bee. No one, 0.5%, are actually looking for root cause analysis. I think we're just doing this problem wrong. And when I spoke with the lead scientist in the U.S. just 3 weeks ago, and we finished the conversation, I got something we were talking about. I said, oh wait, and I know why the honeybee's failing. And he goes, okay, what's your theory? And I said that, bee density. Just we're misusing a bee. A little pause, and he said, I think you're right. I said, and the answer is, well, there's nothing we can do about it. We don't have enough native bees. So we have to keep on misusing this bee. And we'll have to keep on solving nosema and deforming virus and all these different things that are out there because that's all we have. I think there's 2 times to plant an apple tree. 20 years ago and today. Okay? I think 20 years from now, I hope to look back at today and say, thank goodness we started then. So I'm an optimist. I think we'll be able to work past, if we go Earth true, What's the right thing? If we're going to go take a species and manage a species of Hudson Valley, what's the ethical way to manage that bee? I think organics. You know, we're going to try to do all we can because I want to learn from the mess we're doing elsewhere. I want to learn and do it the right way. Hold on. Please.
If I wanted to attract more mason bees and leaf-cutting bees to my garden, I know, like with the monarch butterfly, I plant milkweed. The monarch comes, okay? Are there specific flowers that they prefer more than others? I mean, I know the Bbomb does bring in the hummingbirds and, you know, some of the bees. I mean, I don't know the species of the bees.
So let me help you out. And if we're talking in Arizona, okay, I understand. If I were in Arizona, I'd say what's natural of Arizona, what's been here forever, because that's what the bees prefer. And so shifting out to Long Island or wherever we're at in New Jersey, what's most native here? I'd go to the Native Plant Society. I would be, I'm not an anti-naturalist. I like cherry trees. I like apple trees. They're not from my area. So I'm going to try to think through something that's natural to my area. And I'm going to go more heirloom than hybrid. Hybrids, typically, they're beautiful. They smell great. Like these double blossom roses, there's no pollen in there. A little bit. You know, bees need this. Flowers, it's all about sex. Okay? That flower is there to get to get me pollen to my ovaries and down to my tunnel so I can split. If you don't pollinate a tulip, you don't get two bulbs. You know, so I would go with, I don't know New York, but I'd say whatever's native and naturally growing here, that's what you want. Any other questions? One more? Three more?
Bees. What are killer bees, and what can you tell us about them?
So killer bees, let's go experiment, okay, and not think about what we're doing. So we take the Africanized bee that was very aggressive and brought it out here to North America, and it escaped as some scientists was working with it. It escaped, and oh my gosh, it's aggressive, okay? So it's been doing its mess. It's a hot bee, so it doesn't move up. You guys are safe. I'll never get in Washington. But it's a hotter bee, and it's hybridizing with our native honeybees, I think. And so I think it's still nasty. You're still reading the papers and still doing horrible things in the South. But I think it's blending in with our species that we have here. I think it's becoming, over years, 30 years, it'll be less of an impact. But it's the killer bees was just someone blew it. The mason bees, actually, this is a real good one. 1984, Japan said, hey, here's our mason bee. It's awesome. It's called the horn-faced bee, Osmia cornifrons. Have 500,000 cocoons. It's our gift to you. So Dr. Batra out of the Beltsville lab, I think, thank you for these gifts. Loaded up in a shotgun and just fired it across the U.S. And so a lot of them landed in Portland. A lot of them landed all up and on the Eastern Belt. Some went out to like Michigan and stuff. And funny, in 1985, the Invasive Species Act was, and you can't do that. But it's and it's a great bee. So that bee is from Japan, and it's probably better than our blue orchard, and it has more cocoons. We'll get 6 in this thing. They will have like 9 or something like that. So it's a better bee, but they're there. We'll find them. One more question? One more. Wait.
Does the bumblebees live in Long Island in the same area in woodland in the ground like the wild native bees? They are in the same area in Long Island or no? They are not.
So I don't know the species of bumblebees around here, but the queen, how bumblebee works, kind of in the fall, the colony dies, and before it dies, 5 or so queens mated and poofed off into an 8-mile radius, and they found mouse holes or something to overwinter in. So right now, these queens, 5 queens, are someplace around here. when it gets warm enough, that queen's going to come out and find a new mouse hole around there, and she's going to gather a lot of nectar and hunker down and start her little brood, and then she's kind of, once she's got her broods running, she's going to stay in that hole for her life, and they might get to be a colony of maybe 200, maybe, real small number, before they die off. And so I think they last a little longer, but if you're lucky, you know, to have a little hole in the ground, they're very hard to attract, but if you're lucky enough to get them, they're an awesome bee, and they live longer than probably a mason bee. But that's their life cycle. Off they go. And this is very similar. As far as naturalists, I didn't say one thing. You know, in a yard, understand, so many people take their kitchen, clean, and walk into the yard and expect the same thing in their yard. When I find a hole in my leaf, oh my gosh, where's my spray? When I find aphids on my roses, oh my gosh, where's my spray? Okay? If you don't have aphids, which is food for ladybugs, you'll have no ladybugs or lacewings or whatever. You know, a balanced yard has prey and predator, food, all the way through the chain. And so when we think that I've got a hole in my leaf, those leaves are supposed to have holes in them. You know, let it happen, guys. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but my yard, I have never fertilized my grass. I've got kind of 2 narrow strips. And funny, I still have grass. It still grows. I still have to mow it. You know, I mean, you don't have to put stuff on it. And all of my aphids that are out there, I might see a bunch of aphids, and then I come back about, a week later, and there's no aphids. So where'd they go? I don't know. I didn't kill them. Someone ate them. You know? So for us to relax and let our yard be our yard, let nature be nature. I'm out and I have blackberries, and I'm out kind of playing my blackberries, and there was morning glory. So I'm actually down low, and it's real mucky. And I knew there was a hornet hive around here, and sure enough, I'm the bee whisperer, so I was going quiet. You know, no one's going to sting the bee whisperer. And someone, this was a hornet, went down my back and just nailed me all the way down. I'm screaming like some little boy. Okay. I didn't go and get my spray and kill that thing. It wasn't, I know where it's at, and it's there. A week later, I've got my raised beds, and I've got some grapes over here. I noticed that those same hornets are patrolling my raised beds, going underneath all my leaves. And I'm over here by my grapes, and they're just in there looking for prey to take and pull back to that hole. Why would I disrupt that? I don't like them. Now, if you put your paper nest right in front of my door, yeah, I'm a blast of water and it's gone. It is my house, and I don't want you in front of my door, so I'm kind of a realist. But I'm going to try as best I can. I'm going to let that go. And someone was asking about, you guys have the carpenter bee around here. Haha, I don't. Xylocopa, awesome bumblebee type thing. Yeah, it does drill into woods. This is my little jest. Can I solve this? Can we put in, let's go put a nice house, a carpenter bee house, and have a bunch of boards in there, okay? That I've drilled holes into these things, and what's my pheromone that attracts these guys into these boards that they like poplar over alder? I don't know, okay? But let's see if we can use this sacrificial wood that the bees would go into and use this instead of your porches. And now in the fall, I can take these things out, and I don't know where I'm going to put them, find some farmland that has no wood, and use them out there with sacrificial boards. And now all of a sudden we have a really awesome bumblebee that, carpenter bee, that I could get out as a pest away from you to where they can pollinate. Sky's the limit. Someone join me. Someone go be the carpenter bee company. I don't know. But there's so many possibilities that we just don't think these things through just yet. Okay, I went off, yes. One more second. Come in.
I love ladybugs. How do ladybugs and aphids and bees, how do they get along? What would the interaction be? And also, are you looking for bumblebees? Are you wanting people to send you bumblebees?
So when you said that, I was going through, kumbaya, kumbaya, kumbaya. So they're all fine, okay? Ladybugs and bees would be like that. They don't, they're different things. So just fine on that specific thing. I only want bees that would nest in holes. So a bumblebee is in the ground, and I can't. It's a ground-dwelling bee, and I don't want that in Washington. So it wouldn't be helpful. So just bees that go in holes that I can move.
I don't recognize types of bees, but I know bumblebees are pretty big, and some kind of big bees decided that they loved the top of a basketball pole that I have next to the driveway, and they decided to make a home there for several years. And I have no idea what kind they were. It was a hollow pipe, but it was like 5-inch diameter. Any ideas?
Yes, okay, I know exactly what it is. It's a bee. As I'm talking with these lead researchers, there's 4,000 of them out there. One of the lead guys out of Logan Lab, I said, so, Jim, you're so good you're one of the taxonomists out there, you're so good. How many can you identify? He goes, 20. Oh. But now you could take an hour and you go and you're counting your lengths and the mandibles and the legs, and you can get it. But a lot of them just look alike, and so it's a bee. I promise. Past that, I can't tell you. And so in this little project, as we're trying to find this native bee network, it doesn't matter what bee do you find. As we're trying to think this through, if we went on and identified every single bee, no, that's not the important part. We really need to find, because I'm a food company, we need to find the most prolific bee. And so once we get that dialed in, then we'll go out and ID it. But right now, we'll have a lot of this bee type, So, yes, you have a bee. Okay, that's it, you guys. Thanks. A little different, but appreciate that you cared.